I also want you to tell us what you look out for in this meeting. What's your biggest highlight? Like, oh, I want to learn this tonight. I'm going to be looking forward to XYZ, things like that. Tell me in the comment section, what are you looking towards learning tonight? What do you have in mind? Okay, so we are currently live on YouTube, so you can easily find us there. Please let's tell our friends to join. This is going to be a very insightful class. I was even thinking to myself, I said, it's like this class is going to be too overwhelming. Maybe I should skip my slides because my slides are even so much. I'm like, people will just be like, hey, I'm exhausted. Right. But I always like to just make sure that I'm able to get us to understand every aspect of what I'm sharing with us, because I feel like that's so important, right? So let us have your lessons. I'm going to go on and share my slides now, and you can let me know when you can see the screen. Okay, so I am looking forward to understanding my triggers and how to deal with it. I want to learn about anxious attachment and how to self-soothe. Okay, so let's have more people. Let's have more people tell us what they look forward to learning. I'm looking forward to healing from emotional trauma caused by a faulty background, gamophobia, fear of marriage, and how to handle emotional hurt. Okay, amazing. All right, so let's have more. Let's have more. Let's have more. Everybody, first of all, as we go on, I need you to get your pen. I need to get your book. I need to get every single thing that you need to get so that you can write out a lot of things as you go on learning. You have to make sure that you're not just looking at me, but that you're actually taking your time to learn in every capacity. I want to how to manage my emotions in whatever environment I am in and how to heal from trauma. Amazing. Let's have more responses. Let's have more responses, okay? And if you're just joining us and you have not told us your locations yet, please tell us tell us your locations, and we can actually understand what's happening on your hand, okay? Uh, so let's have that. Let's have more. I'm looking forward to knowing how far I've come on my healing journey. Okay, that's great. That's great. That's great. Okay. So if there are people responding on YouTube, I might not know because I'm not with that. My second device is not with me. Okay, so let's have more responses. I'm looking forward to healing from childhood trauma and helping myself to manage my relationship to be more feminine because this is affecting my relationship right now. I love that. I love that. How to manage trauma, especially related to relationships. I'm looking forward to understanding the sources and root of trauma and how to heal from them completely. This your name is silent speaker. This is your name. You need to tell me where you got this name from. Silent speaker. That's good. Silent speaker. All right. So let me say hello to people in the. I can see Abimbola. I can see Olabisi. I can see Alice. I can see Hayo Busola. Mrs. Chijoke. If you can't hear anything, please can you try to log out? Can someone help me respond to her? You can log out and log in, that kind of a thing. Okay. So yes, because of our YouTube audience, I'm going to have to set up my second device right here. Just give me 2 minutes to do that quickly. But I still want you to drop your locations and also drop what you look forward to learning as we continue. In 2 minutes time, I'll be back with my other device set up already. Okay. Yes, I went off briefly. How to manage trauma related to relationships. I'm gentle, but I have a strong voice as well. Okay, that's good. All right, so let's see what's happening on YouTube. But I believe that more people should still join here in the meantime. All right, so let's go on and just get started, right? Let's just go on with the class. So tonight we're going to be talking about healing from trauma. And my desire is that you will not only listen, but that it will come to you with depth, with understanding, with clarity, and that you'll be able to understand the kinds of experiences that you've had. What I want to do for us tonight is that I want to show you the different kinds of experiences you've had and how much it has really affected you, because we do not sometimes understand the weight of trauma, and we do not also understand the impact it has had. The worst part of it is that we don't even know that there are some things we've gone through that is actually trauma. And I think that that's the most painful part of the whole experience. And it's just so important that we know that what we go through as human beings are not just focus on our spirit. Because while you may be very great at praying, you must also understand that you are a body, soul, and spirit entity. And so, whatever is happening to you is not just happening to your spirit, it's happening to your soul. And so, you must become a person who is very intentional about how you are relating with yourself, right? And as we go on, I'm going to share more with you about all of this, right? So, let's just go on with our conversation tonight, right? Now, this webinar is a safe space to understand the silent impact of trauma, how it shows up in your emotions, relationships, and self perception. You'll gain clarity, language, and the zeal to begin your healing journey, because freedom starts with awareness, and this is your first step. Okay, so welcome and welcome to this moment. Now, just in case you're wondering, what's BloomNest about? Who is BloomNest? Yeah, so BloomNest is a new company which is embodying every single thing that we have been doing under the Folagbade International brand, which is coaching, therapy, courses, things like corporate trainings, resources for professionals, for businesses, for schools, for churches. You know, these are things that we have done over time. So this company brings everything in one umbrella while creating a more professional and corporate look. So that's just the difference between Nika Folagbade International. I'm still going to keep my personal brand for other things like my books, my resources, and all that. But then when it comes to anything around all these things I just mentioned, it's not going to be under BloomNest. And remember, this is like our launch webinar. This is our first gift to people to let them understand what BloomNest is all about and what we can do for you. So yeah, we provide you with the tools and the support to foster personal growth, emotional wellness, and thriving relationships through coaching, therapy, group programs, and specialized courses. And our vision is to catalyze personal transformation, emotional wellness, and thriving relationships among individuals, families, and organizations, right? So why did we start? It's because our mission is simple but profound, which is to transform the lives of people, to strengthen individuals, families, and organizations, because we know that one healed person is going to give us one thriving relationship, and from there we'll also have empowered leaders, empowered families, and many other things that continues from there, right? So then what do we do? Our mission is to empower individuals to embrace their true identity and also experience healing and personal transformation. We also want to strengthen families by providing the tools for deeper communication, intimacy, wholeness, effective parenting, and purposeful relationships. We also want to support organizations, with tailored programs that enhances emotional intelligence, teamwork, and relational excellence. So we are fostering a workplace where people and goals will flourish. Okay. Now, I want to start with some quotes. Along the line, you're going to say a lot of quotes because I feel like some quotes bring out, the beauty of what I'm trying to teach. Now, some of these quotes are actually silent speaker. Stop marking my slides. I can see your hand. So some of the quotes are by myself. Like they are from me, and then some of them are also from other people, which you're going to see the name. Now, if Mrs. Omobolande is here, we have a workbook for you that you're going to use as we continue, and I'm going to let her know when it is time for her to share the workbook so that you can answer some questions as we go on in the class, okay? Now, the first quote you can see here says that healing begins the moment truth touches pain. Healing begins the moment that truth touches pain, because everybody has gone through pain in one way or the other, and everybody will go through one sort of pain at one point in their life or the other, right? So you can't run away from it, and you cannot deny it somehow, right? So what wasn't your fault has now become your burden, especially when it comes to things around generational trauma, watching how your parents handled certain things or the ways that they behaved at certain point in time, and you're wondering to yourself, how did I get here? You see, there are things that were not your fault. There were reactions that were not your fault. There were certain ways that your parents or people have actually treated you that is not your fault. But eventually, somehow, you know what that is. It has become your burden. And so you need to find ways to actually, heal from it so that you are able to become a better person for yourself. Okay. Now, just in case you're joining us for the first time and you're not really sure of who I am, my name is Folagbade, and I'm a family life coach and therapist. I teach and empower singles and married people with godly and practical strategies for building a healthy relationship and marriage. I also help you heal from childhood and emotional trauma. So I'm also certified in different certifications. I'm a master practitioner of neuro-linguistic programming and result coaching, an associate of family systems engineering, and a certified emotional intelligence and anger management coach. I'm also a SIM-based facilitator, which is meant for those who are engaged and those who are newly married, right? I'm also a certified cognitive behavioral therapist and coach, and a mental health coach. So I have certifications around all of this and even more that I have not also added to this particular slide. Okay. I write for Business Day, Women's Hub, and I've been listed in numerous editions of the 150 most influential and inspiring young people, inspiring coaches, and inspiring authors in Nigeria. So I'm also the author of over 10 books. And I'm the founder of BloomNest Coaching Company, right, where we do coaching and therapy. I'm also the founder of World Bright Network, which is a program for women, and also the founder of Life in the Heart Global Ministry, which is for spiritual discipleship for singles and married also. So let's go right into our course right away. So in this webinar tonight, you are going to be learning how to define trauma in relatable and liberating terms. We're going to break it down in different ways that you've never seen before. We're going to make it so elaborate that you start to see it in ways that really matters, right? We're also going to help you break a lot of trauma myth that people have normalized and have begun to see it from a different perspective. We're going to show you more about what it means, okay? So we're trying to connect over to her YouTube, guys. I don't know why my phone is not helping me get on YouTube right now. Okay, so we're right here. So just at any point in time, if they have any questions or any comment they are dropping, I'm also going to take it. So for those on YouTube, just note that I'm able to see your chat just in case you want to drop any chat along the way, okay? So we're also going to help you to trigger self-awareness. We're going to help you to understand the different aspects of trauma that is affecting you. We're going to show you the different layers of trauma and also help you to begin a deliberate journey into healing, right? At the end of this program, trust me, you're going to be more intentional about many things that you have been experiencing in your personal life. Now, I'm going to start by asking us some questions, right? Just so that we can be a part of these. At different point in time, I'm going to be asking you questions, okay? Now, Mr. Mobolanle, can you help us to share the workbook on you can share it on the Zoom and also on the YouTube, and just pin it if you can. Okay, so now there are different images of children that you'll be seeing on the slides, and I just want us to, engage with ourselves. The first thing I want you to do is to describe the mood of these children that you can see. You see different children and you can see how they're acting. And you know how children are very curious set of people. Children are always they're always so bubbly, so excited. There's nothing to worry about. They're not thinking about food. They're not thinking about what do you call it? They're not thinking about timetable or whether there's house rent. Let's have more responses in the comment section. Let's have more responses in the comment section, okay? They are joyful, they are excited, they are lively, okay? So you can only use the workbook um, with your notes. Like, you have to put the answers right in your notes because you won't be able to fill it. It's not editable, if you get what I mean by that. Okay, let's have more. Let's have more. Happy and excited, zero worries, happy, free spirited. Yes, I like that word. They look happy. Okay. Now look at the girl, the white, the one with colorful hands. If you I don't know if you remember yourself when you were young. When I tell my child stories of what I used to do when I was young, he used to look at me and be like, mommy, are you serious? I used to tell him those days, we used to go out and be playing with sand. We do mommy and daddy, we'll do tire, we'll do all sorts of sway and all these different kinds of um uh, you know what I mean now. We all had different kinds of play, nothing to worry. So we can paint our face, we can paint, and even today now when you go for birthday parties, you see that they would have what you call it, some painting stuff that they can, give people and all of that, right? So it's important for you uh, to understand that children have nothing to worry about. Now, let me ask you another question. When you were a child, what were your dreams? What were your desires? What were your passion? What was your personality like? Tell me about it in the comment section. Tell me, because hi, me, I know that I know there was something about me when I was young that I am also working on. And as we go on, I'm going to tell you why trauma is deeply it's something that really connects with me deeply, and I'll explain that as we go on. But tell me, when you were a child, what were your dreams? What were your desires? What were your passion? What was your personality like? Are you still the same person that you were when you were a child? Now, I know that they used to say, when I was a child, I thought like a child. Now that I'm a man, I'm now speaking like a man. So that's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about that wisdom that comes with adulthood. I'm just talking about, just think back at yourself. I will start with myself, but I want us to engage. Please, if you're not engaged, we're just going to end this meeting now. Please, the only way for you to understand trauma is to engage with me as I go on, because we're having questions, right? Now, when I was a child, or me, I was very playful, very, very playful. Because now people tell me, ha, Nika, you're always working, 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 working. Your own is God. If it's not God, it's work. If it's not work, it's this one, everything. That's what people say. But the truth is, I was very, very playful. So when I see my child playing a lot, now I used to be like, this is your place. I used to be like, this is me actually. This is how I used to act when I was a child. When I was a child, I was very adventurous and fearless. I like what you said. Uti says I was adventurous and fearless. I was also, this tank, what they call those things. I'm not sure if you have the word, please give it to me. I mean, those things they place the tank on, those iron, raw, I don't know the full name to give it. You see, my house then was like two-story building. So that's like three different um scaffolding. Okay, thank you. All these engineers in the house. So you see, just think about how a two-story building would be very high. And now think about this high on scaffolding, right? I used to climb it as a girl. I did not send. It's almost then they'll be saying, "Oh yeah, you girls, come down, you boys, go." But me, I will climb. I will make sure that I climb to the highest point that nobody will climb to, right? So I'll climb up. I was that fearless. I would, I would go to, if I remember clearly, I think there was a time that they had not put some what do you call this at the balcony. I can't remember what must have made me to be, jumping down. I can't remember because I know that we had this burglary proof, right? So I can't really remember, but I know that there were times I used to, jump down. I used to do that. I even from my house, I learned how to do this. Is it long jump or high jump, whichever one is. I'll put two chairs and then I'll put a long rod, right? And then I would be running around and be jumping. And then I would do lawn tennis also. One person here, one person there. I used to try to do basketball. I used to try to play football. I used to do all sorts of things. I used to dance a lot. I used to rap. I used one of these days I'm going to go and look for one song and just mimic it and start rapping for you guys. People like, who is rapping? Who is like how? I used to rap. Let me tell you the truth. I used to rap. I used to write songs, like a lot of things. Now, when I used to dance, there was a time that I used to dance without music. I just start dancing and begin. My uncle used to call me a cricket. He'll be like, how can someone be dancing without music and you're the one that's giving yourself music? That's why he calls me cricket. Now, if you notice, as a child, what then happened is that they start to label you. They start to tell you things like, what's wrong with you? Why are you acting like a this, like a that? And I remember clearly that at a very young age, someone had said something to me about the way I was dancing that really shook me. I don't know if the person put something in their mouth because people can say all sort of things to me and I will not be bothered. But this person said something to me, and that thing broke me so bad that I'm still recovering from it, even though it was something that happened to me when I was about maybe 10, 11, or 12. Right, we're having this competition, and the reason I'm sharing this story is to let you know that the things that are happening to you are not just things that started recently. There are things that you probably have forgotten about and you not even realize that this thing was something deep. But I'm saying to you that you must think about the things that has happened in your life. What she said to me that they really brought me to the point that I began to dance in my privacy. I will not dance in public. I became conscious of myself, and just because of that comment that someone said to me, right? So you must understand that the person that you were while you were a child is crying out for expression. Do you see? That's why you keep having a contention of your soul because something is just happening to you and you know that this is just not how you wanted to live your life. Pain has just taken away what you were supposed to experience. Now, as a child, did you get the attention, affection, validation, and modeling required from your parents? Right. So we have a lot of comments, but I may not be able to read it now. Let's just continue. As a child, did you get the attention, affection, validation, and modeling required from your parents? If you notice, I used a father with a daughter, and then I also used a mother with a son. Why? Because I've noticed that this is how affirmation and affection begins as a child. Usually, the daughters are closer to their fathers, and then you will see that the mothers are always saying that this is my rival in the house. This is the side chick, always wanted to be around daddy, that kind of a thing. But then you see mother and son, they are so close, so affectionate, everything. And it's very important for parents to use that opportunity to mold the children by using the right words and saying the right things to them. So ask yourself that question. Did you get the kind of affection and attention that you wanted? So I'm going to also ask you a few questions apart from the ones that we currently have on the workbook. So please, the workbook is for you. You can answer the questions while I'm teaching, or you can answer the questions later on. It's fine, right? Now, what did you grow up experiencing that is affecting you today? A lot of things, right? I know we pray a lot, but inside this class, you're going to discover a lot of things that you've just not been thinking about before, right? What was said or done that shut you out of the reality of your life? What is your biggest coping mechanism? Everybody has a coping mechanism. Everybody has some sort of mask that they have used to cover themselves, right? While growing up, what kind of personality did you have? Were you reserved? Were you bubbly? Were you creative? What changed this? What did they say to you that made all of these things to stop? So just think about that, right? So now let's go into the part I love the most. I have a lot of quotes that I want you to pay attention to, right? So I'm just going to your childhood was perfect. Now that's great. And even when you feel like your childhood is perfect, you must also think about some things that was too much, or some things that were exaggerated, or some things that you were too pampered not to have experienced. You have to maybe as we go on, you start to think about other things that you need to pay attention to along the way. Okay, so let's just continue. Now, when we deny our stories, they define us. When we own our stories, we get to write a brave new ending. Brian Brown in the book Rising Strong. When we deny our stories, they define us. When we own our stories, we get to write a brave new ending in partnership with God. The question then is, what stories are you saying to yourself? Because your stories are very powerful. What are you saying to yourself on a very deep level? What exactly were you saying to yourself? Right? I need you to answer that question. The story you say to yourself is the narrative that you give to yourself every single time. Okay. Now, trauma is a fact of life. It does not, however, have to be a life sentence. We have Peter A from Healing Trauma. Now, as we go on in the course, you're going to discover different kinds of trauma, right? Because I mean, it's either people experience childhood trauma or they experience emotional trauma, maybe from life experiences dealing with friends, with career, with education, bullying, and all of that. But then you're also going to notice that people also have marital trauma. So I'm going to be talking about these three different trauma. That's childhood, emotional trauma, and marital trauma in its sense. Okay, so trauma is a part of life, but it does not have to be your life sentence. Your past may have shaped you, but it does not have to define you, right? You may not understand why you have been where you are today. Um, it's also very important that you understand that it does not have to define you. That's what Oprah Winfrey is saying to us. Okay, let's look at another quote again. It says, trauma is not just what happened, but what it created within you. Trauma is not just what happened, but what it created within you. It's not just that word that someone said to you. Just an example of that story I was sharing. While the person may have said something to me in that way, it did something to me, and it's what I call shame. And I'm going to talk about shame later on, right? So let's look at another quote again. Now it says, "Until you heal the wounds of the past, you will continue to bleed. You can bandage the bleeding with food, with work, with sex, with alcohol, with social media, with drugs, with hunger, with business, but eventually it will all push through and stay in your life." By Iyanla, right? So you must understand that people are always using all sort of things to cover their wounds, but that is not how it should be. So why are we having this trauma conversation today? It's because trauma is usually ignored in relations, in religious spaces, yet it determines how we respond to life experiences. As a human, you're a spirit living in a body with a soul, and this means that things will affect you in different areas of your life. While motivation and sermons can give you the temporary fuel to keep going, your soul needs to be attended to for you to live an original life. Do you understand? Now, you see, for you to be authentic to yourself, you must know that you have to identify that you've gone through stuff. I come on, I used to pray a lot, but I realized that there were a lot of things happening to me that was actually connected to what I had grown up experiencing. There were a lot of things, and prayer could not take it away. That's the funny thing. You can try to pray away an addiction. You can try to pray away a defense mechanism. You can try to pray away whatever, but you will notice that you're still struggling with those things, and that's because you must understand that prayer will tackle your spirit, but you need help with your soul. You need to confront some things and understand all the layers of things that has happened. So over time, I noticed that I started to understand myself. because I have a lot of awareness. And so I used to journal a lot. I used to sit down and just journal this. I do this. Why am I doing this? Oh, I notice I respond this way. Oh, this happens. Oh, I used to read meaning this way. I keep writing and writing. I didn't know that all the years I was doing all of this, I didn't know that I was going on a journey that was going to lead me into treating trauma like this. I just noticed that I was very self-aware, and I was always writing, always making research, always just penning down stuff, right? Reading stuff and all of that. And as I started to understand that there were certain things I could not just chase away with prayer. There were things that I needed to confront. There were a lot of emotions that I was suppressing, and there were things that I could not change, but they had affected me. And I really needed to really work on them and be the person that God has called me to be. Now, last year, I just heard a word, restoring your original design, which is going to be the theme of our conference later on this year. I heard restoring your original design. I was like, what does this mean? And gradually and gradually, the Lord started to open my eyes to the fact that everybody was created in a particular way. So if this is how God created you to be, for instance, I'm holding something, and then somebody eats you here and eats you here and eats you here, and then you start to shrink. You shrink. You curve. You do all sort of things. Before you know it, you are bent. You are bent beyond the way you should be. Whereas God needed you to be this full person. So you must understand that trauma is the enemy's strategy to stop you from living the best life that God has called you to live. So what is trauma? Trauma is an emotional, psychological, and physiological response to deeply distressing or disturbing experiences that overwhelms a person's ability to cope, and it can leave a lasting effect on your sense of safety, your self-worth, your relationship. You see, the truth is, it takes time and when we get to meet, I'll talk about that. It takes time to deal with trauma. It's not a one day thing. It's not a one time thing. It's not, oh, this thing hurts me. Now I'm not self-aware. Oh, this is what I'll start doing to you. And then all of a sudden, oh, you're okay. No, it's not like that. It's not like you take a pill and then you're fine. No. That's why even when people are taking pills to treat trauma issues and all, it's just to suppress their emotion. It's just to get them to how do I put it? Maybe to sleep or to numb how they are feeling. It's not going to take it away, right? So let's define trauma also according to childhood, emotional, and marital distress. Okay, now childhood traumas, um, I'm loading it so fast. Childhood traumas are painful or distressing experiences that occurred during your childhood, which have affected and shaped your emotions, your behavior, and your relationships, right? Your childhood, there are experiences that has now gone on to shape your emotions and all of that. But then emotional trauma also refers to deep emotional wounds that is caused by distressing life event that affect how you think, how you feel, and how you interact with the world. Now, the reason why I'm separating this is that there are things that happen in your childhood. So if you look at Mrs. Haisha now, she's trying to tell us that she did not experience any childhood trauma, and that's fantastic, right? Very fantastic. But what she experienced instead was marital or something else, right? Now, some people experience emotional trauma, but they never had childhood trauma or marital trauma. They're probably married to an angel, and everything is just going fantastic well. But then, because it's important for people to know that trauma is not just, oh, because it didn't happen in your childhood or you're now happily married. What about in how you've been going through life? Maybe you got rejected at a job, somebody bullied you at a point, somebody said something that has affected your mind. You cannot ignore it, right? So emotional trauma is emotional wounds. Marital trauma is those painful struggle that's come from, the distressing event from your marriage that is either caused by your spouse, your children, or the circumstances of your marriage. What I mean by circumstances of your marriage is it may not even be about your spouse. Say, for instance, both of you are struggling with finances. You're not earning so much, and it's really causing a strain on the marriage itself. You guys you're just managing. You're having to beg for food. If you're begging for food, that's you're begging and telling somebody, please, I want to buy on credit. Every time you want to go to buy on credit, you go there and then you are like, every time you are realizing what you will say, how you will say it. That's emotional trauma that has come because of the circumstances in your marriage. So it doesn't have to be that it's your spouse that is saying something to you or your relationship partner or whatever. Okay. So now there are also types of trauma. trauma that I want you to pay attention to. And the essence of knowing this is that there are degrees to how trauma happens. And if you get this, it just helps you to see things differently. So we have acute trauma. You know how you go to the hospital to treat malaria and they say, this is an acute malaria. That's because that malaria is very strong. It's no longer the normal one that you just take one malaria drug and just leave it alone. There are some that they will say you need to come and take injection, you need to take drip, you need to take this. Why? Because it's called acute. And so acute trauma are resulting from a single shocking event that is very deep, like accident. That's a very deep one. You can't compare this kind of trauma with maybe another kind of, minor one that may have happened to a person, or assault, like being molested, being raped. That's an acute kind of trauma. Or natural disaster. Imagine a whole house getting burnt and the person loses all their properties they can never forget for the rest of their life. Or imagine losing somebody right in your hands. The person dies in your hands. That's a sudden loss. That's a very acute trauma, and that person requires a lot of healing process. There's chronic trauma which develops from long-term exposure to distress, like childhood abuse or domestic violence or chronic illness. All of these things I just mentioned now, there are things that happens continuously until the person is set free from it. So if you had a parent that was abusive to you as a child and it continues every single time, imagine someone like Joyce Meyer, for instance. Her father was always, raping her, sleeping with her. It continued for a long time. That's a chronic kind of trauma. Then we have complex trauma. That is a series of traumatic events that, is happening in relational context and it's affecting your identity and sense of trust. It means that to an extent, it's happening in different ways. Maybe as a child, for instance, you were beaten, so there's the domestic that's the physical abuse, but then there's also the aspect of maybe you were always sent out to go and hawk. It's complex just means it happened in different ways entirely, but all of them came together to become trauma. Then we also have vicarious trauma, which is secondary trauma. And this speaks to people who are helping people like myself, for instance, sometimes just absorbing the stories of people, caregivers, therapists, first responders, even mothers, just going through some kind of trauma because you're having to face people at a degree at certain points in time. And that's why we always try to make sure that we have ways to onboarding or to let out whatever it is that's happening to us. And we also have developmental trauma. And this is arising from the things that you did not experience while you were growing up. Right. So maybe you were supposed to have food, but there was never food to eat, or you were exposed to unnecessary things, neglect or instability. Even do you know that even having a father who was always traveling up and down, your father goes to Kano this month, he goes there for 1 year, then you leave your school, you follow father, and then when it's 1 year time, they say, oh, daddy, you are going to Abuja, then you go and start another school again. That in itself looks like trauma because every single year you're always changing school. So trauma can happen in different ways. There's intergenerational trauma. That is trauma that is passed down from one generation to another due to unresolved pain with families or cultural groups. And this can occur from like slavery, family, war or oppression or things that just happens around the family. And that's why you that have come here, you are telling yourself, I want to heal so that my own healing journey can also impact my children positively. I remember a time where someone in our WBN group was finding it difficult to connect to her son because she had gone through trauma. She was never touched as a child. She never experienced those physical contact with her parent, like the one I showed you pictures recently about the father and the daughter, the mother and the son. She never experienced that. So whenever the children wants to hug her and she's like, leave me alone, don't touch me, this and that. And that day I was just talking about it, and she just looked at me and said, are you saying that my son should be able to touch me very well? I looked at her and I was like, are you serious? Like, she even asked me the question. I felt this pity for her. I was like, yes, it's your son. Like, hug him, kiss him, do all sort of things. And she just broke down. And I'm very grateful that later when she came to tell me that she has now become very intentional. That's just trauma on its own. I don't know how to explain that to you, but there are just some things that happens to us that we don't even know how to relate with our children. That's why healing is very important for yourself. So let's talk about causes of trauma quickly. I'm just going to rush through this because I have a lot to say. We have father wounds, right? Like absence, neglect, harsh discipline, loss, rejection, a father that was an alcohol, person, or abandonment. Whether it's even mother wounds with the same experience. Abandonment can just be that they were always leaving you or dropping you at, family friend or neighbor, and every time they come back home, maybe around 10 p.m. because of their job and all of that, right? There's criticism and high expectations, and that is when you grow up, just never feeling good enough. And you see, this thing, it's either they were always criticizing you, or you never even experienced validation or affirmation. They never told you what was good about you. This one is very bad. Not because it's worse than the other ones, but it just makes you grow up never seeing anything good about yourself. You even find it difficult to receive compliments. You just feel like there's something wrong with what people are saying, or what they're saying is not correct. Do you get what I mean? Right. So there's also experiencing lack and poverty, which is leading to you having to, start raising your children. I say your children, you're helping your parents at an early age. You're having to using myself as an example. I think from the age of 14, I started to work in a factory. When people see us like that, they just be thinking, how these body children, these body children. Me, I started working at 14, right, at a factory. And I remember that I used to do night shift so that the money can be enough. When I do night shift those days, the money would be like 12,000. I hope you know that 12,000 at that time was looking like, I don't know how much it would be now, but I mean it was good. It was enough to do a lot. And I remember that those days when I'm going home, I'll go and make sure I buy Viju milk. Visual chocolate milk, and then buy some other gala and the like, just so that I'll show that it's our financial coach. Only is 60K now. I don't know. But anyway, that's what I was doing. And anytime I collect my salary, I'll go and buy something to bring it home, and they will know that you expected salary. Just being a person who had to, raise or help at any point in time at a very early age can also be a sort of trauma in itself, right? We have children who came to Lagos maybe at the age of 14 or 16 and started to live their life by themselves. You get what I mean? There's favoritism or mistreatment within the family in itself. There's also social and economic environmental causes like bullying. A lot of people experience bullying in their school, maybe especially if you go to a boarding school or so. Physical abuse from peers, there's comparison with siblings or peers, there's early exposure to toxic relationships, there's rejection or betrayal, and then growing up in a very toxic environment. Okay, then there's also relationship and marital causes like heartbreak and rejection, betrayal from close friends or partners, difficult marriages. Ah, difficult marriages, I feel like it's because marriage is like, you know, marriage is like a place, a covenanted place where you don't just wake up now and just say you want to come out. And so there's a lot of layers of verbal abuse, emotional abuse, and all sort of different kinds of abuse that are just layering themselves in the name of marriage. So if you're married and you're always going through a lot of things, you need to find an outlet. You need to find ways to heal, right? So how do you know that you're experiencing trauma, right? So I have three different kinds of symptoms that you can pay attention to. We have the emotional symptoms, which is how you are reacting in terms of your emotional state. And this speaks to, intense fear, anxiety, panic attacks, depression, sadness, or you're emotionally numb. You're just numbing yourself, pretending as though you're okay, just praying things away. Guilt, shame, or self-blame. You're always blaming yourself at every point in time. You just feel disconnected from yourself or your reality because that's the only way you can cope. Or there's sudden moods and irritability or outbursts of anger. You're quick to get angry about things because it reminds you of something that someone has done to you in the past. There's difficulty trusting others or just forming close relationships. But then there's also the cognitive symptoms, right? And cognitive here speaks to the brain and how the brain is responding to how things are happening. Before they used to feel like the brain was fixed, that nothing can happen to your brain after, because they say that from the age of 1 to 7 is your cognitive years, is the years where you should learn everything, and all the habits, the mindset, the conditioning, the indoctrination happens at that age. Whatever you learn at that age, science always feels that nothing can change anymore. You cannot change yourself. But now they now know and they have accepted now that there can be some sort of change, right? That if you can create new neural pathways for your brain, right? They call it neuroplasticity. It's how your brain starts to rewire a new way of doing things. Just imagine passing through a place for like 10 years. You grew up in an environment and you always pass a street to go and buy something every single time. I mean, it's going to be difficult. You know that if they even create a new road, it will take time for you to say you want to go and try that one. You are just already used to this one. Even if you close your eyes in the night, that's how you're going to be passing. But then now science is saying that you can actually change by repetitive, moves in that direction just to alter what has happened in the past. So cognitive symptoms that you'll be experiencing could be things like intrusive thought or flashback of that particular traumatic event. I remember a very traumatic event that took place maybe 2, 3 years ago with my child. And when it happened, you remember I read a quote that said, it is not even what happened sometimes, is what it did to you. You see, that when it happened that day, I did not really feel it. I was still being a strong woman. But do you know that every single time I started to think back at it, my body would just start shaking. Immediately, we're going to look at that. My stomach is going to react in a particular way. It will tighten itself, and then my body will just send shock all over my body. That's how my body used to respond to it until I started to retrain my brain to see it in a different way. So now, when I think back at it, not like I won't feel it, but it will be minimal, not as much as it used to be before. So there's nightmares or insomnia. Recently I just discovered something. I used to say that I used to have a lot of nightmares because my eyes, I'm a seer, and to an extent, one of the things that happen is when I sleep, I would start having all sort of dreams. Dreams are always scattered, they just scatter here and there and all of that. Before I started to do some things about it, I realized that unresolved trauma can lead to nightmares because there are some dreams that speaks to your soul, the activities of your soul, the activities of your mind. So if you're a person who has so much of trauma inside of you that you have not healed, you'll be showing up as nightmares. And then for some people, it's the fact that they won't be able to sleep, right? That's insomnia, right? So there's also difficulty concentrating or memory loss, forgetfulness, right? There's also hypervigilance when you're constantly at the edge of, there's even one I did not write. I think it's called catastrophizing or something like that. That is always imagining the worst of things. When you just hear a sound, you just in your mind just is that arm robber that just came in? Is that an accident? Is that a gas explosion? That's the only thing your mind is always thinking the worst of things in that area. Then there's a lot of negative self-perception, like I'm not safe, I'm broken. You're always saying these things to yourself, and it's some sort of shame that you have put upon yourself at different point in time. There's also self-destructive thoughts or behaviors that have become a greater way for you to deal with stuff, like just choosing to drink or choosing to smoke or just choosing to do things. Those are the ways that your brain also responds to trauma. Then there's also the physical symptoms, and that's because the way I'm approaching trauma is to let you know that there's the body aspect of trauma, there's the soul aspect of trauma, and then you can look into the spirit also. So to an extent, there are things trauma stores itself in your body. We talk about that in nervous system. There is trauma in the body. There's a way it shows up in your body, right? Beyond all these things I've even said. So there's chronic fatigue or exhaustion. There's unexplained body pain. At times that you're experiencing pain at certain part of your body. And some of the ways that we release some of these things is, we call it breathing techniques, where you touch a particular place where you're feeling this particular body pain, and just begin to breathe in. You take like 7 breath in and then 8 breath out, and you do that continuously and continuously until you begin to release that aspect of yourself as you continue. Then there are people who have rapid heartbeat. You're always having heart palpitations, or shortness of breath or sweating. And if you're already having things like that, you definitely want to go and check up. Maybe you want to check your BP and things like that. You're always having sleep disturbances. And if you notice when you're sick sometimes, or you have typhoid, you start having some sort of dreams that looks as if they're pursuing you and all sort of things, right? Then there's weakened immune system because you're always having frequent illnesses. Now we're about to go into the one I love. It's called the myth about trauma, right? If you're still here with me, please tell me in the comment section that you're still going to be here. Let us know. Let us know. Are you still here? Are you still here? I hope you're writing things in your notes. Let us know if you're still here with us. Let us know if you're still here with us. If you're still here with us, don't leave us so soon. I've just started and I really want to be fast, but I just started actually. Okay, so let's continue. Now, this myth about trauma is supposed to blow your mind and help you understand some of the things that you are believing to be true that is not true, right? So please, I'm going to share 11 with you. You need to, as I'm sharing it, just be taking it out, just be stripping it off of yourself. Now, the first one says that trauma only happens after a major violent event. Not true. From all the examples I've given to you by now, you know that that's not true, right? Trauma is not just based on a major violent event. It's not until they hit your head, bah, you have an accident, that kind of a thing. No, even just words being said to you, someone saying things that they should not say to you can also, cause trauma to you. So trauma can also result from emotional neglect, abandonment, betrayal, chronic stress, unmet childhood needs, lack of affirmation, and all of that. So it's not just about what happened, it's about how your soul experienced it. Do you know that something can be said to me that will not mean anything to me? It can be said to you and it will mean something to you. How your soul interacts with it at that point is how it matters at that point. So the fact that, so for instance, say you, let me give an example. Something happened to my mom one time, and as I was sharing the experience, somebody was like, hey, but this has happened to our mom before now. And that, it has happened to our mom. And I mean, this is something that almost killed her, something that God saved her from. That same thing happened to somebody else in the hospital the next week, and the person died, right? This is something that looks like high blood pressure plus memory loss, plus a lot of other things involved. And because this other person's mother has had high BP before and they have been managing it with drugs, then this person wanted to commonize this experience by saying, but this has happened to her own mom before. So it's not really a big deal. And this is how I was looking at her like this. There are times you want to fling a person. You're just looking at the person like, it's like, you don't know what you're doing. So you see, the fact that somebody, maybe you were experiencing something and somebody around you was just like, and what's so special about this thing? Don't allow anybody to minimize what has happened to you and that your soul is refusing to let go of. Do you understand? Now, the next one says that if I don't remember it didn't affect me. Hmm. You'll be amazed by the things that your body remembers, that your brain remembers. There's this quote that says, until your, I can't remember how it's said now. um it speaks about the subconscious conditioning, because we have the conscious, the unconscious, and the subconscious. It says you could keep going through the same cycles and pattern of things and keep calling it fate. I think it says until your subconscious become conscious, you will keep going through the same things and calling it fate, right? Instead of actually understanding that it's your subconscious that has trained you to react that way impulsively, compulsively, and all of that, right? Yeah, the subconscious is very dangerous because it's there, but you don't know that it's there. If it is conscious or unconscious and you get to the conscious level, it's still okay. But when it's subconscious, it's deep. It's a deep ingrained conditioning that requires so much to uncover. Okay. So the fact that you didn't remember it does not mean that it does not affect you. The body and the subconscious remember what the mind suppresses. Unhealed trauma often hides beneath behaviors, triggers, or patterns you can't even explain sometimes. Yeah, until you make the unconscious conscious, you call it fate. Yeah, destiny. Yeah. Now, number three says only weak people are affected by trauma. There's nothing like weak people. They will even say, women are weak vessels, I beg. Trauma has nothing to do with weakness. Some of the strongest people carry the deepest wounds, often beneath their strength, right? They also say that time heals all wounds. Time may pass, but unprocessed trauma festers. Healing requires intentional reflection, support, and release, not just the waiting. Mrs. Omobalani, please, can you help share can you share the link again? Though I can't really see it on YouTube. I think you shared it, but it went off or something. Please share again for the sake of those who are just joining us. Okay, so don't forget to go through it and just answer some questions. Okay, so let's continue. You can actually think you're okay, but the subconscious will be processing and actually bringing up symptoms suddenly, and you can get sick. That's very true. Okay, so let's continue. Now, time does not heal all. When people say things like, don't worry, with time, you'll be okay. That's not true. I beg. Don't lie to yourself. Number five says talking about it is worse, makes it worse. No, depends on who you speak about it to. Usually, what happens is when you go and speak to your pastor's wife, for instance, let's use that as an example that people always say, oh, pastor, and then the pastor keeps preaching and preaching and preaching about it. You know what they will say? They will say that that's the thing now. They are talking about my issue in the church. I get it. You must find a way to speak to the right sort of people. And that's why you must invest in therapy when necessary. Talking about it doesn't make it worse when you speak to the right set of people, because avoidance increases the shame and internal chaos that you're experiencing. So, safe conversations are one of the first steps towards clarity, compassion, and healing. Okay. Number six says that if I'm if I am high functioning, I must be fine. This can be me. You see, many trauma survivors become overachievers, people pleasers, or perfectionists as coping mechanisms, and functioning isn't always healing. Doing too many things is not healing. It's really just burying yourself in many things at the same time. So the fact that you are um the fact that you are the one that is topping in your office as the one that brings the highest lead. Question is, are you driven by ambition? Are you driven by the need to be the best? Or are you doing it because you really want to do it? Number seven says childhood trauma is just part of growing up. Everyone has it. Yeah, everybody has it, but normalizing it does not mean that it has healed. So what was common may still have been harmful, and your pain deserves attention. It says, I should be over this by now. Who said you should be over it? But have you done anything about it? Healing does not have a deadline. Oh. Your nervous system and your soul needs kindness, not pressure. So you have to be able to tell yourself the truth per time. Number nine says trauma only affects your emotions. Not true. Trauma affects your body, your brain, your identity, your relationships, your spiritual perceptions, and your physical health. So it's not just about your emotions, right? Now, once I feel better, I'm healed. No. Like they gave you a pill that you swallowed, or you slept and you woke up, or you listened to a song and you're feeling better, does not mean that you're now healed. So feeling better is not the same thing as being whole. Healing is layered. It involves uncovering, releasing, rewiring, and rebuilding from the inside out. Healing is an instant event. No, healing is a journey, it's a process of soul excavation and a need for every human so has to be restored to their original design, right? Soul excavation. I heard this word, I think it was last month while I was just journaling. I just heard soul excavation and I was like, that is allowing the different parts of your soul to begin to come up, right? Now, what are the triggers of unhealed trauma? What is happening to you per time? You must always ask yourself, why am I reacting so strongly to issues? Trauma responses are often not about what's happening now, but about what has happened before that has not been healed. So moments that feel bigger than they should, a simple conflict that leaves you in tears, a minor disagreement that sends you into a shutdown or rage, or you avoid confrontation because it's dangerous, not just uncomfortable, right? There's also words, tone, sound, or silence, which means that a specific tone of voice can mimic how a parent used to speak to you in anger, right? What's like you're too much, or why are you like this, can reopen old wounds. So silence from loved ones might feel like abandonment, and a particular sound can even remind you of an old traumatic incident in itself, right? Now, rejection that is either real or perceived, not being invited to a gathering, and you're just like, it's because they don't like me. Recently my neighbor was having a birthday and we are new in this particular apartment. We're just about going to a year. And so she's already used to how she used to do it every year and probably knows how she does her invitation. And on this particular day, I just kept hearing noises of children running around, my neighbors and all of them were there. And it just crossed to my mind that, this one must have forgotten to invite us, right? I just took it that it was that she forgot. I didn't start saying, nobody likes me. People don't really care about me. No, I simply said to her, well done, oh, happy birthday to your daughter. I said, I know you must have forgot. They said, oh my God, I'm so sorry. You're our new neighbor, blah, blah, blah. And, I had to tell myself, that is an impressive self because, another person can just start to snobber or just start to, and so when she was going to have another birthday today is even the birthday, she called me a long time ago, like, hey, I don't want to forget, though. Please, I'm inviting your son for He's even still there. I need to go and drag him out. And that was just, and even, we even got a gift because all the birthdays that they have invited us to in this estate since we got here, I've just noticed that people like to exchange gifts, and that's what I've been doing, because there's just some places that you go to and you just know that gifts is just normal. It's not like you'll be going to places that the only thing you want to go and do is just eat rice. And if they don't give you rice, voila. That's another level of trauma in itself. So being misunderstood or feeling unimportant in spaces where you give your whole can also look like rejection to you. So you must ask yourself, is my brain rewiring how I interpret things in a certain way? Now, common triggers also include spiritual guilt or manipulation. For instance, fear of being not enough for God, or pressure to perform spirituality instead of resting in grace, or past religious experiences that were abusive, shaming, or controlling. Now, triggers are not meant to shame you. They are signposts that is pointing to what still needs to be healed. Do you understand? You must always ask yourself, what is this thing? See, every time you notice a pattern in yourself, you must document it. This is one of the things that I do. I always would say to myself, this thing that's happening, this is what it means, this is what it looks like. What it does is it helps me to become self-aware at that point. Now, I want to show you a scripture. The day I read this scripture, this were part of my journey in like I've been going through healing from trauma for years. And it was when the Lord, I feel like it was when God just felt like, I think it's time for you to address it. And that's when I was like, what, go teach them healing from trauma as your launch webinar. This is one scripture that I don't think people have read it very well. Psalm 106:15, it says, and he gave them their request, but he sent leanness into their soul. Do you know what it means to experience leanness of the soul? Leanness of the soul is when it feels to you that you're always coming to God, you're always praying, Lord, I want money, I want this, I want that, I want this, I want that, and you're not even chasing intimacy or whatsoever. And then after a while, take. Those times they were like, give us meat, give us this, we want egusi, we want this. We want all sort of thing. We go back to Egypt. Blah, blah, blah. That's how the Israelites kept complaining. I said, take what you want. Right. So you may have all what you think that you want, the ambition, the career, the car, everything, but you still feel emptiness in the soul. And that's why you can say a celebrity that is out there popping the wine, doing clubbing, doing all sort of things. They have millions of followers, but all of a sudden they get back to their house and they're just like, nobody loves me, nobody cares about me. And so they keep smoking and they keep drinking. All of that is to silence the truth. Do you understand? So trauma begins to lean the soul when it has not actually been dealt with. You can appear successful on the outward, but you still feel emotionally empty or heavy on the inside. Leanness of soul is the silent erosion of vitality, of passion, and inner peace. You just know that there's something wrong with you. Trauma also diminishes your inner capacity to feel deeply. So you become numb or overly reactive to receive love or help because somehow you receive support or believe that you're a burden to people, or you find it difficult to connect with others. So you're either over attached or isolate yourself. And then also distort your internal narrative and you start to say things like, maybe I'm too broken, maybe I don't belong, people don't like me, maybe I have to earn love. And it also leads to fragmentation of your inner self. I'm still going to speak to you about soul fragmentation, right? It's the splitting of the soul. It's the splitting of the soul in itself. We'll talk about that. So let me ask you, are you familiar with soul fragmentation? Let me ask you first, are you familiar with it? Now, the soul begins to split in response to overwhelming pain, and you may find yourself living in survival mode, connected from your joy or your identity. So what trauma does is it shrinks the soul, but healing expands it. So your soul regains strength and shapes and spaciousness as you heal. Is there anybody here that is used to the word soul fragmentation? Let me hear from you. Now, there's also what we call being trapped in your childhood. So I'm going to ask you, do you think you're still trapped in your childhood? I'm going to say a few things to help you understand this. And now I'm beginning to go into things that you begin to understand as maybe what you have experienced over time. Okay, now don't worry, I'll get there. Now, you may grow up, and this is what happens to narcissists a lot of times. They are still in their past. they've grown up, but a part of them have not grown up. And at that point, that's when the demonic starts to take a part of their souls that have some parts have been trapped here. There's splitting of the souls, So when the Bible says it restores my soul, and that's like bringing the brokenhearted back into complete healing, right? So let's continue. One of the signs that you know that you're still trapped in your childhood is that even though you grew up, some part of you never did. For instance, number one, emotional arrest. The trauma can freeze you in the age when the pain occurred. So let's say a 35-year-old woman might still respond to conflict like the 8-year-old who was never allowed to express emotion. So let's say maybe when you were between 7 to 10, every time your parents don't allow you to express yourself, you start having outrage. Allow me to talk. And you start, your eyes will just open, everything will just, your body will be shaking. You may continue to be that person, even though you are now 40-year-old, you are now 35-year-old, because that was your coping mechanism. And so what I do for my child, for instance, and if you're a parent here, please, you need to hear me out at this point. I'm going to write about this in my book for children, that will be for parents. When your children are younger, don't allow what you did not experience to rob them of what they should experience. What I mean by that is, while you were growing up, most of our parents, what they did was they shunned, dismissed, suppressed our personality weaknesses instead of helping us to regulate it. So if, for instance, my child, if my child shrinks back because he was given a feedback, and then he begins to feel like you're rejecting him, I'll call him back and say, why are you acting that way? You're making me feel bad. You're making me feel bad. I'm like, why do you think I'm making you feel bad? Do you think I'm trying to make you feel bad, or you think I'm trying to help you to be better? You want me to be better. So what should you rephrase that as? You're trying to correct me. So when I correct you, what should you do? So listen and be a better person. Okay, so clap for yourself. That's how to help your children regulate. It may not be instant. You continuously correct them, because when they become an adult and they have not learned how to regulate their emotion, that's when this trapped in your childhood continue. Do you understand? Now, you also notice regression under distress. When overwhelmed, you revert to coping styles that you learned as a child, like people pleasing, hiding, withdrawing, or exploding. So tell me, when you were younger and they beat you and your siblings are doing, and they will do that, what do you used to do? Beat you, revenge, I'll do this. And then you go and hide at the back of the chair, right? Because you're experiencing shame at that point. That in itself is a coping mechanism. It's the same way people still hide now. A lot of people are still hiding. They withdraw or they explode. You notice how, and see, a lot of parents have children that are very strong-willed, and you see them scatter everywhere, and they call them troublesome. They will write on the wall, they write this and that. They did not take time to correct and regulate these things for them. When our child was beginning to try to do that, we spoke to him about it. When you do this, what happens to the wall? The wall gets dirty. What happens afterwards? It becomes the wrong way. Okay, I will not do it again. So if you come to a house, you will not really see much of that, right? The way some people will come to a house and telling us, our child break the TV, carry this one, scatter it. No. Regulation, emotional regulation. That's why even as an adult now, you have to start teaching yourself to do that. But I'm just saying, if you're a parent, start doing it for your children so that you teach them to become a more holistic, whole children. If you get what I linked this to the module reviewed, which discussed the need to heal your inner child. Yeah. Okay, so now let's talk about emotional immaturity in relationships, which is an inability to hold space for emotions, either for yourself or even for other people, right? You're struggling to set boundaries because of fear or of abandonment and all of that. It's important that you always create the time to make yourself to heal. Childlike needs in adult life, longing to be chosen, protected, approved because you never felt safe as a child. If you get what I mean. If as a child you were never chosen, you were never picked, what do you think is going to happen to you now that you're an adult? You will start looking for how to always recreate such things. So um until the inner child is acknowledged and nurtured, you will keep crying through your adult decisions. Do you understand? Sorry, hold on. Okay. Let's also talk about learned helplessness. Now, this happens to a lot of people, but many times you probably do not even know that that's what you're experiencing. I can't change this. What's the point in trying? Have you ever found yourself trying so hard to change an habit or change a pattern, but it just looks like you don't have the capacity to do it? Or you find yourself, so let me give an example. I struggle a lot with exercise. I would get what do you call this thing? I have bought skipping rope plenty times. Every time I buy the skipping rope, they'll be like, we're done. We're done with your skipping rope. I'll be like, what is the meaning of that? Actually, they're supposed to encourage me. They'll be like, do you know how long you have been buying this skipping rope? You buy it and you will do it small. After a while, you stop. You know why? Because every time I keep telling myself the same story. Because the story you tell yourself will determine how well you can heal. My whole story is that every time I do exercise, all my joints will start paining me. If it was just a little pain that can just go, just in bit, I'll be fine. But instead, all my joints will be paining me as if I had an accident, and it will go on for like 4 5 days. Question then is, what sort of pain is that? Based on that, I always run away from exercise. So I always run from it. So what I started to do to myself from last year was, instead of always running away from exercise, I started to walk to walk around my estate. But I recently saw somebody's video where she will have she was keeping, I think it was 500 and all of that, and it did not change and all. No, I think she was keeping, is it 500 every day, and then she was able to lose weight and then also maybe changing her food. When I saw that, I said, this makes sense. So maybe I should also try it. All right. So repeated disappointment, or sorry, repeated disempowerment breeds passivity, which means if you were constantly ignored or overruled or punished for speaking up, you may stop believing that your voice matters. If, for instance, while you were growing up, anytime you give a contribution in your family, your mother will say things like, come on, will you shut up? What do you know? Look at you, very foolish, and you're always you're trying to contribute. You're just foolish. You notice that when you're in the midst of people and you want to speak, you will not speak again. You will tell yourself that they may say that I don't know anything, right? Or you stop expecting change, because even when opportunities appear, you withdraw or you sabotage them, or it feels safe to stay stuck than to risk disappointment. Do you understand? So you must always tell yourself, why are you always not expecting change? Do you know that some people here now, if there's a competition that is going to require that some people will be picked to maybe win something or to get scholarship, do you know some people here now, you don't usually would do it. You've already told yourself your story. I'm not going to be picked. Me, I don't used to be lucky. I'm not going to pass. They will not even see my home. Is it me? Is it my type they're looking for? That's what you're telling yourself. You have to pay attention to what you're telling yourself, because learned helplessness is not just you not doing that thing again. It's also how you also withdraw away from opportunities, or when you find yourself in a place that you know this is good for you. This is something, for instance, maybe there are actions you used to take every day that is leading you to sell or to gain something for yourself or to be more influential, and all of a sudden you find yourself withdrawing from it because now you're telling yourself, am I sure I'm ready for this success? Are you sure? Are you sure? Maybe it's not your time. Maybe it's not your time. So you withdraw from it. So you're feeling helpless. And when you're also feeling that way, you start to become addicted to comfort zones, because healing requires discomfort. And so if you prefer to stay in familiar dysfunctions, then you fear success as much as failure. Do you understand? So there's also external dependence for internal solutions. You're over relying on others to rescue you, to affirm you, to validate you, because you were never taught to trust yourself. How many of you here would always ask everybody all the questions whether you should follow an idea or not? And because two people that you told, they all said, this doesn't look like a good idea. You did not take that step. But you know that this idea came to you from God. Till today, you have not taken that idea. You've not taken step because you are waiting for the person that will say, I understand this idea. Oh, this is lovely. do you trust yourself enough to actually pursue that idea? You need to start dealing with the learned helplessness that you've also, taken for yourself. There's also trauma-induced forgetfulness. A lot of people are struggling with forgetfulness. You know why? Because your brain is trying to shield you from that thing that has happened to you while you were younger. So why can't I remember my childhood clearly? When people come for therapy session and I ask them, tell me what happened to you between the age of maybe 5 and 10, you hear things like, can't really remember anymore. But then they went through certain things that has affected them. Question is, your brain is probably shielding you or blocking or fogging traumatic memories because those things were too difficult, were too painful for you to process. So your brain just shut down at that point. You may feel guilty for forgetting. Don't. It was actually a survival mechanism for yourself because maybe in thinking about it, people intentionally just shut down a particular part of their mind because they can't handle the pain that comes with that reality, right? Sorry, I'm going too fast. So there's time distortion. You can't place memories in order, you forget names. When you start to suppress your emotions gradually and gradually, what then happens is that you now start to forget names, you forget moments, you forget entire seasons of your life. Is there anybody here that used to remember people before? When you see someone like this, you be like, I know you now, Auntie Bola, things like that. And then now you've just discovered that you can't even remember anything anymore because you've gone through so much of pain, right? You've gone through so much of pain over time, right? So let's go on. There's also this very one I talked about, that is soul fragmentation. You see, when life shattered you, you became someone else just to survive. When life shattered you, you became someone else just to survive. Right? So based on that, you may find yourself not allowing yourself to experience certain things that you should have experienced. So when people go through very painful situations, what it can lead to is, number one, part of you goes into hiding. That joyful part, that assertive, that joyful part, that assertive part of you, that trusting part, now it has gone to hiding. You don't even know about that. You don't even know that part of you anymore. You've now split it into different ways. Trauma forces you to abandon traits that once made you whole because you feel like it's unsafe to be that person. Instead of you to learn and say, what can I learn from this experience? Instead, you will just throw everything away. You know how they say you cannot throw the water and the baby away, right? Do you get what I mean by that? So you became a protector, not just a person. You live in overfunctioning, hypervigilance, or performance mode. Also, then you carry roles like you're a rescuer, a strong one, or a silent one, not because you want to, but because you had to, right? How do you heal the trauma knowing that the next step might be delayed no matter how much you pray? And then you need to ask yourself, what is it that you have not learned? What's the character that God is trying to work on you that has not been learned? Who is it that you have not spoken to? Have you put in place the structures and the systems that you need for that thing that you are requesting for? Do you know if there's a season that God wants you to work on first? So you can't look at others and think they got it free and easy. That's a wrong interpretation. Do you know what they were doing behind the scenes? Do you know who they spoke to? Do you know if they had connection, or do you know if they were reading their books for so long? Do you know if they done this or done that? But you're not seeing it. So when you look at other people and think, this person got it easily and got it for free, that's wrong. You don't know what people are doing underneath. So make sure that you're also ready for what you are praying about, okay? Now, some of you also become a protector. Some of us become a protector or begin to overfunction, hypervigilance or performance mode. Okay. All right. Now I'm going to just keep the slides here. I want you to go to a particular part of the workbook, and I want us to have answers right inside. Let me open it over here. I want you to let me open it over here. Yeah, the workbook. Please, can we open our workbook at this point? I want you to answer some questions. the first question there says that, what do you, okay, don't answer that one. You can answer that one as yourself later on. Now, the third one says, which version of you did you have to become to survive? Who would you have been if you didn't go through that pain? So the question is, which version of you did you have to become just to survive? Who would you have been if you didn't go through that pain that altered your character, right? I want you to answer that question. Tell me who you probably would have become now if some things did not happen to you, right? I want to pick my son from this place. Time has gone. I'm just going to ask him to come in, but I want you all to answer the questions. Please don't, anybody that starts saying things like, I can't hear again, that means you didn't hear my instruction. Please go to your workbook and answer number 3 in the comment section while I take my son from next door here. I'll be coming right now, please. Okay, so I'm back. All right. Um, so nobody has answered the question yet. So are we saying that if you think back at when you were growing up, just think about the person that you were at that time, when you were still bold, courageous, where you were very creative, where you were anybody that you could be. Are you saying that maybe there are steps you would have taken that you have not taken now? Maybe there are there are depths in life you would have gotten into if you had actually been that person, if not for the altering that happened in your life. Can you think about it? I would have been a very free-spirited, motivated, and jovial person, but now I've become so self-defensive that I don't want any negativity to get to me just because of emotional abandonment from parents. Fantastic. So this is the beginning of self-awareness. Okay. Now, for some, okay, I became a to survive. I had to work on dogged faith. There was no hope of anything going to work in reality because of the state of things. Then I had to take radical steps, even when it seems foolish. If I had not, I would have been living a frustrated life by now. Amazing. Became a protector, rescuer, vigilant, cautious, secretive in order to survive in the mind. But now I've gone back to being my usual carefree, free-spirited, bubbly, self-creative. Now that I'm separated, okay, I see. There was a separation. Okay. Now, this also says you become a protector, not just a person. You're always over functioning, hypervigilant, you're always carrying rules that are not yours. Your identity becomes scattered, right? You don't even know who you are outside of your pain. You confuse your wound with your words. Let me explain something to you about what do you call this then? soul fragmentation. Now, when a person has gone through pain at different points, say at the age of 9 or 10, you went through a very traumatic experience. That's one side of you. That side of you will just deassociate itself, and you just suddenly feel as though you are a different person. You just tell yourself, I don't send anymore. Then you go through another experience again that betrayed, maybe a friend betrayed you. Before you know it, you have different parts of yourself in different areas. And when it comes to deliverance, you see, usually what the demonic do, what they do is what these demons, what they do is they stay in those different aspects of your souls that has been splitted. Maybe there's this part of you that you struggle with addiction, right? You are struggling, and so the demon of lust can stay there. Maybe another time somebody used to say critical, rejection, used to express rejection generally. That part of you takes another side again. So you have different voices speaking at different times in your head, which is why when you do a work of forgiving yourself, when you do a work of changing how you think about yourself, what it does is it starts to free you. It makes it very easy for you to experience some sort of freedom spiritually, mentally, and emotionally, right? But a lot of times, some of you, you'll be going up and down for prayers, for deliverance, but those parts of you, you've not dealt with it. So before you know yourself, they will come back again because you are not ready. You're not ready. Every part of you is still fixed in those painful experiences. Do you I hope you get what I mean by that. That's why it feels like some deliverance are not successful because the person is still that same person. You're still going through those experiences over and over and over and over again. So over time, it has changed the way that you see yourself. So you are still that person. You've not forgiven. You are struggling with pride here. You're struggling with this here. You have not done the work of your soul. Do you understand? Now, so let's talk about the crushing weight of shame. Because shame is the soul silencer. It hides, it teaches you to hide. And I feel like shame is at the root of how many people are struggling today. I find it difficult to bond with people. I was friendly as a child, but I experienced rejection on two major equations that threw me into a shell. So no one, when people try to get close, I get very uncomfortable. Okay. Shame is not just the feeling of doing something wrong, it's deeper than that. Shame is that lingering belief that I'm something wrong, that you yourself, you're wrong, that everything about you is just wrong, right? Some of you use shame. Many people use shame to get themselves to do things. You better get up now, get up and go and do that work now. You know that you're too lazy, you're a very lazy person. You know that this and that. The way you talk to yourself is just filled with so much shame. So one of the ways to even begin to heal is to actually begin to change how you speak to yourself. To start to track the way you speak to yourself on a consistent basis, right? And then so let's talk about the effect of shame on your soul. Shame disconnects you from yourself. You begin to see yourself through the lens of your failures, your wounds, or what others have said about you. Shame hides in silence. It thrives in secrecy, making it hard for you to ask for help, to admit pain, or even receive healing because you're so ashamed of yourself. I feel like the moment you're able to overcome shame, you overcome a lot of things. You must identify that this is what it is that is wrong with you. Shame creates inner division. It prevents one version of you, it presents one version of you to the world, and then you're living with conflict with the hidden side of you also. So people have different personalities because of shame on its own. Shame also feeds, perfectionism and performance. So you're ashamed of certain things. So you always want to present yourself a certain way, you dress a certain way, you talk a certain way, just so that you can earn love and earn respect and earn your place in people's life. But you see, shame distorts your relationship with God and others. It also avoids intimacy because you fear being exposed. And that's why in relationship, you see people that are just always lying. So just always gaslighting. Because you've trained yourself to believe that you cannot, how do I put it? You've trained yourself to believe that nobody deserves the truth, that nobody can handle your truth. So you've told yourself it's just better for you to always lie and always pretend to yourself. I want to share with you the final. I want you to pay attention to what I'm about to share with you. This is going to open your eyes to how you have been experiencing trauma. It's called the layers of trauma, right? And this was one of the highlights I wanted to show you. I'll come back to your question. Now, trauma has a different process, which it affects you, but also happens in layers. What I mean by layers is the degree to which it is happening gradually. So look at this. The first one is what I call the origin layer. And I want you, if you have your journal, I want you to use this to, let's practicalize this in itself. Oh yeah, go. Let's practicalize this in itself, right? Number one is this, the origin layer. So what happened to you? I want you to pick one of the things that has happened to you so far. What happened? This is the actual event or series of events that has caused you emotional, physical, and psychological harm. It could be a breakup, a divorce, childhood neglect, rejection, abuse, betrayal by someone that you trusted deeply, a traumatic birth experience or health care, a loss of a parent, a loss of a caregiver, or a loss of a friend, or a loss of a loved one. Can you, I don't know how many of you are with your pen. Can you write out? I want to show you how trauma happens so that you can build on it for the healing journey now, right? Ask yourself, number one, what happened to you? Now you're free to choose one experience because some people have 10 experiences or you have 5 experiences. Can you choose a major aspect of your life? Let me use the dancing that the one I was talking about, that I was having a dancing competition with some neighbors in my house when I was about 11 or 12. And in that moment, somebody said I was dancing like a monkey. And because I had put in a lot to my dancing skills those days, I used to go and crash parties a lot, all those birthday parties, children parties. And then they would carry out a crowd of people. And even in the midst of 50 people, 30 people, me and my brothers and my neighbors would still be like the first five, we'll be on the first five. But on this particular day, even in the midst of just 3 or 4 of us dancing, they said I was one that took the last position, and they said to describe my dancing and said that I was dancing like a monkey. I don't know why that word hurts me deeply, but in that moment, what I noticed was I entered into a new word. It was as if the word came like a bullet, like bish, and it just entered into me. And as it entered into me, I just looked at her like this, like, really? And all of a sudden I felt shame. That was the first time in my life I ever felt shame. Can you think back at the time that you ever felt shame? A time when you used to be bubbly, you used to be playful, you used to be carefree, you used to be free spirited, because all of a sudden you started to feel shame. Can you remember that day? What was it that happened to you that day? Can you think about it? The second thing is, if you're able to think about it, I want you to write it down that this is what it was and name it down, right? Let's see. I want to be sure that you're practicing this exercise. If you have written the origin layer, that is what happened to you in your notes. Please tell us I have written it. Let's be sure that you're not looking at me at this point. Please tell me, have you written what it was? Was it a breakup? Was it a divorce? Was it a childhood neglect, a rejection, abuse, a betrayal by someone that you trusted? What was it? Let's have up to 10 people that have written it. Right? Let's call that the origin layer. We have 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, let's have more people. We have 5. Let's have more. Let's have more people. Two, 4, 6. We have 4 more to go. Please write it out. Write it out. Write it out. Because for a lot of believers, we don't do the work of healing. What we actually want is we want a magical force to come into our life and just take away our hearts. We don't know that healing is a practical process. It requires writing, it requires rethinking, it requires a lot of things that will happen to you, right? Okay. We have one more. We have one more. We have one more. We have one more. Let's be sure that you're not just looking at us. All right. So now let's go to the next one, which is the meaning maker layer. The narrative that you formed. Remember, I talked about the narrative, the story you're telling yourself. After a traumatic event, your brain tries to make sense of what has happened, but the story we tell ourselves often aren't true. They are survival stories, they're not the truth. Like somebody is saying now, somebody is saying that other people get it easy and free, but your own, it's always delayed, or one thing goes wrong, and all that's a story. So the next thing you want to ask yourself is, what is your internalized narrative about that experience? What have you internalized about the experience, right? Now, on this particular day that this person called me that I was dancing like a monkey, she was probably not even trying to make jest of me. She was just maybe just, you know how careless, all this careless talk when you're trying to compare somebody. You know how people can just say careless word. And maybe that's just what she was trying to do. But I internalized it as rejection. I internalized it as shame, right? So that is what it was. Like I'm not good enough. I wasn't able to dance enough. That my body, I have to be conscious of my body. I have to be conscious of what I do in front of people, that I will be judged, that I have to present a version of myself. That is an example of an internal narrative. So can you tell us in the comments if you have written this? So write it down. I have examples here, like I'm not enough, no one will ever protect me, I have to hand off, my voice doesn't matter. That's an example of that. So just write maybe one or two statements that you internalized as your meaning of that particular event that took place. You get what I mean by that? Okay, so now we're going to go to the behavioral layer. We're going to go to the behavioral layer, right? Those on the YouTube, we're here watching you. Narrative like I'm not worthy. Yes, I don't deserve it. Maybe my own has to be extra. You get what I mean by that? So now the behavioral layer is this. People reject me if they know the real me. You can write as much as you want to write inside of your notes. It's fine. So now the behavior is how you now start to behave and show up, because now this is your defense mechanism that is relating to the belief system that you have attached to that experience that you had. You get what I mean by that? Every experience that you have is going to result to a coping mechanism, or let's call it a defense mechanism. So for that experience is an event. The meanings you attach to it is the belief systems that you attach to it, your narrative, the stories you are saying to yourself. Then if there's a behavior, then you now start to show up in a certain way. So your body and your mind adapt around the pain, creating patterns that feel like just who I am, but they're actually defense mechanisms. And that's why sometimes we show up in a certain way to people that's not, we betray ourselves. We betray ourselves because deep down, that's not who we are. Deep down, we are not, we just happen to have shown up that way because of what we have gone through. You get what I mean? So you now start behaving in ways like people pleasing. So you need to highlight how you have been behaving. I'll give examples like what we have here. For instance, people pleasing, overachieving to gain approval, avoiding conflict at all costs, being an avoidant, like someone was talking about attachment style, becoming emotionally numb or disconnected in relationships, over controlling your environment, over controlling people, over controlling your appearance just to feel safe. You want the person to act the way that you want, to behave that you want. You get what I mean by that? Then lashing out when you feel ignored or unseen, just lashing out and just misinterpreting what everybody thinks at that particular point, right? Then when you write out the way, so ask yourself, how have I been behaving? Ask yourself that question and just write it. I want you to identify to yourself now, what are the ways you have been showing up? How have you been showing up? What have you been doing? If you can put some in the comment section, it will make sense. Let's talk about some of the things that you have been doing. Things like people pleasing, lack of boundaries, compromising, lashing out, writing on your status. What are those things that you have been doing? How have you been showing up that doesn't really speak to the real you, but as being your coping mechanism, your defense mechanism, people pleasing, lashing out when I feel unseen or unheard. Okay. Can we have more? Like, I needed to put myself down. I think for the person I was asking about forgiveness, it would be you shut down. Okay, shut down. Somebody was asking about how do you forgive yourself when you do not think you have the blame for anything that happened to you. And if you think you need to forgive yourself, how do you know when you are forgiving yourself or others? What does this really look like? But there are a series of things that you can do to go on that journey to forgiving yourself or to helping you to um just restructure how you see those things, right? You don't have to be blamed for anything. It's not by blaming you. Nobody has talked about blaming yourself for anything, right? So sometimes it's not like you have to forgive yourself. You don't always have to forgive yourself about something that you did not do. So why are you taking blame for something that you did not do? Right? So it's not always that you have to go through all those forgiving yourself or taking blame and the like. There are other things that you can do to heal and to go on the journey of forgiveness, right? Not being able to say no, okay? Emotional outburst, okay? Shutting down, pretending to be who I am and acting in a way that would make me gain acceptance from people. All right, fantastic. Now let's talk about the trigger layer, right? When present moment, I love that. Overthinking, yes. Fight to be relevant, avoid conflicts, people pleasing. I can be a loss. Oh, yeah. Okay, so the trigger layer. So let's talk about the trigger layer now. When present moment touch past pain, this is how you know that something is still affecting you based on how you are reacting to it now, right? So this is where you find yourself reacting too much to something small, not because you're crazy, but because the present pokes and hold wound. For instance, your partner sighs in a conversation and suddenly you feel like you are being criticized again. Married people, let's show up. If you're married in the house, show up, show up. At that times your partner will just give you one body language and you're already thinking this is what it means. Even as little as how do I call it? Sorry. Uh okay. As little as how do I call it? Maybe your partner is pressing their phone and they are smiling inside the phone. You already start thinking, this person is talking to a girl. This person is flirting because that's the only thing that you think is the result of smiling on the phone. What if they are looking at a post that is funny? What if somebody, a friend, sent a chat that is funny? Even married people, you're already traumatized because you've seen a flirtatious message before, and so now you now feel that your partner is always flirting because they're smiling on the phone. Just think about how your partner or maybe a friend that you already used to just does something like, "Mm," and the minute you just do, you just take it that it means your own is too much, or you are too much, or you have to tone down, you have to shut down. Whereas maybe it's just their own way that they respond to certain kind of stress or irritation. Or so sometimes you need to ask people questions. Oh, why did you do that? Was that for me? Or just okay. Another example can be that you sent a message to a person, the person has not responded after 5 hours, and the person now uploaded a status. How do you react to it? Because it now takes you back to the past events. It takes you back to the origin, and then you talk about the meaning that you've attached to it, and then you talk about the behavior. So over time, maybe you usually will have maybe your partner or whoever. So you've dated people in the past, right, before you got married, and usually that person will just delay in responding to you, and they'll be doing stuff on their status, and over time you have now attached a meaning to it. Remember that there's always an actual event first, and I'm using this as an example, and that was your actual event. And now that you have that as an actual event, the next thing you're now thinking about is that anytime somebody is delaying and then uploading on their status, it means they are ignoring you. It means they don't send you. It means that they have an issue with you. So now you are married and your spouse does that, not knowing that your spouse has not even gone through their phone at all. They just quickly uploaded something, I just dropped the phone. The next thing you're already thinking is, this person's avoiding me, this person's already doing this person's already, and what do? You start sending messages. Hello, what's the meaning of this? Why aren't you answering me? Why do you always behave like this? Something is wrong with you. What do you mean? You're taking me for granted. Da, 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 da. Well, all those things you're doing is because you already attach a meaning to how a person does the moment they don't respond to you on time. Do you understand? Do we understand? Ah, this, do you understand this now? What if your partner is the one reacting to you in this way? Does that mean they are experiencing trauma? Yes, they are. They are. They are probably the ones who have experienced trauma. Yes. Your partners too are people now. So usually your partners will always react in certain ways based on something that they understand. Now you have to understand something. When it comes to healing from trauma, there are different, a lot and lot and lot of ways to heal from trauma. Trauma is not something you just heal from in a day. It starts first with self-awareness. And what I've done for us tonight is to open your eyes to the different things about trauma, the different ways that trauma happens, the different interpretations of trauma, and the things it does to you, right? For instance, maybe you're hearing things like soul fragmentation for the first time. Now, what I've done is I have not gone deep into all of these things. I have only just shared bit and bit here and there. So what I mean by that is I could, if you notice, I could just take soul fragmentation. I just share a part of it. It's just a little, but I have not talked about it very well. I've not gone deep. And that's because I mean it's just a free class. It's just to introduce you to um certain concepts about healing that you need to understand over time so that you are able to do better in how you are managing healing. Do you understand? So healing is a journey. It's not something that just happens at once, right? And there are times that your partner is also responding to things that they have seen while growing up. Let's give you an example. If your husband, let's just use an example of husband. See your husband, anytime you raise your voice a bit, they just snap out like, don't yell at me, stop raising your voice at me. And then the conversation moves from what they did to you are raising your voice. I'm sure you've seen things like that. Now, what you must understand about that is, do you know that there's some men who grew up seeing their parents fight a lot, and every time either mommy or daddy was always raising their voice, and all the neighborhood would be hearing. So everybody will be hearing, and everybody can hear that they're always fighting. Do you know what that does? You will never want to be raising voice because you feel like there's a shame that is attached to it. Like, oh, people will start having an opinion. Ah, so these people used to fight. I thought they love themselves. Ah, so they are fighting. Those thoughts you're having will start leading to that shame. So you see that your partner reacts in a certain way when you start raising your voice because it reminds them of the shame that they experience. A lot of people are very defensive in marriages. And it's just because they're trying to respond to trauma in the way that they can respond to it. People are not trying to confront what they've gone through. Do you understand? So I need you to do this exercise for a lot of the things that you have gone through, which is to say to yourself, what was the origin? What was the first thing that you experienced? What meanings did you attach to it? How then have you started to show up or behave as a result of those origin? And then you say to yourself, what is the trigger that you're having every time? Look at this one. It says, when your friend forgets your birthday, you spiral into, I don't matter to anyone. Whereas maybe they've actually forgotten me. I've forgotten my friend's birthdays very well, right? And it's not because they don't matter to me, it's because I do not have the date in my mind. And I just came online the next day and I just saw that there's birthday celebration. I'm like, hey, Jesus Christ. I'll reach out and be like, oh, I'm so sorry, babe. I was not online yesterday. I was just busy. And they're just like, no problem, sis, it's fine. And that's for those that understand, though. I can't try that to some people. They would have given me all the courses in this world, and that's how you know that this is a toxic kind of relationship, right? So you are asked to speak in public and you feel like your voice will never be good enough. So you are conscious and always conscious of yourself. So that's the first thing you have to do. The first step you have to take in healing from trauma is to identify the origin, to identify the meanings, to identify the behavior, and then to identify that which is triggering you, so that you'll be able to understand your belief cycle, your defense mechanisms, and all of that. So that's the first stage of understanding the layers of trauma. As you continue on this, you then begin to go into in-depth of taking things on a very deeper level, right? For instance, there's a way to deal with learned helplessness. There's a way to deal with soul fragmentation. There's a lot of things. There's the CBT techniques. There's the internal family systems. There's the breathing mechanism. There is goal setting. There is reframing of mindset. There are a lot of techniques when it comes to healing from trauma. Do you understand? And it's not something that you just do in one day and all of that. The first stage that I believe that everybody must start doing is to first come into the place of self-awareness. That's the first stage that everybody must experience. When you come into the stage of self-awareness, the next thing you want to do is to start paying attention to the stories and the narrative you're telling yourself, because it starts to show you the emotional states that you're always going through at every point in time. It starts telling you that there's something you are saying to yourself that is making you not to take a step, or not to trust people, or not to make a decision, or not to do certain things. It is based on a thing that you're doing. Sorry. So to an extent, all of that starts to happen. The next thing you want to also do is to get yourself to the point where you start to journal how these things happen, and then start taking yourself through these 4 cycles at every point in time, right? So then let's continue. So now I want you to just think about this. Just imagine yourself being able to do a deep dive into healing beyond all of this. Now, some of the things that I would have loved to take you through is going to be what I call the 8 step of healing, the 8 steps to healing from trauma, from stronghold, from wrong mindset, from whatever it is that you've gone through over time. I call this 8 step framework trauma to thriving, right? The first the first step is to recognize in itself. And that's what module 1 is about. Here we're talking about trauma on a deeper level, taking you through some of the things I've already talked about, but this time around, taking you on a more, deeper level, showing you the somatic lens in terms of what happens to your body when you go through trauma. And so we go deeper into all of these things. All these things that you saw now are just like a bit and bit and bit of a larger piece of this, just so that you can have some sort of self-awareness in itself, right? Even though it's a free class, I still wanted you to have a deep dive understanding of all of that. Now, the next part of this is what I call reflect. Here you're understanding your internal world. And so we go deeper into the concept of soul fragmentation, the inner child experiences shame. Then we start looking into shadow narratives in itself, right? And helping you understand how trauma shapes your identity and your filters. And we look into the stories that we tell ourselves. And then we go into reframe, even the way that you think, the core wounds, the belief systems, the mindset. This is what I was talking about that time, catastrophizing and all of that. And then we start to help you to rewrite your internal script and naming new truth. Now, for this to happen in this 8 step framework, this has to go through a lot of journey. There are things that you have to do on a daily basis. There are things that you have to do, like tracking stuff. There are a lot of templates that you need to use. For instance, we have a workbook that has questions today. But then when it comes to this, there's a lot of templates, there are a lot of trackers, there are a lot of journaling, there are a lot of exercises that you have to do on a daily basis. Module 4 is talking about regulate, helping you find safety in your body. Again, now we're helping you to understand your nervous system and how it's reacting to the things that are happening to you, and how you can begin your journey into neuroplasticity and all of that, and helping you to reframe the way that your brain already understands life generally, right? So yeah, we're doing the work on grounding, breath work, helping you to build emotional resilience, and also helping you with your trauma storage, because trauma stores itself in your brain and in your body. We also help you understand how you're responding to certain things. For instance, we have the flight, the fight, the freeze, and the fawn. We help you understand this on a deeper level. And then we also take you through release. Yeah, we're not helping you to let go without losing yourself, because you don't have to carry what has almost destroyed you. So we help you understand grieving what you have been through. and also understanding emotional backlog. The reason why you're getting angry at certain things is because you have not grieved that thing properly, and you have not also identified the emotional backlog that is attached to that particular experience that you have. So somebody was asking about forgiveness. There's something called forgiveness, what it is and what it isn't. There are things you don't just forgive. There are things that requires another techniques entirely. Forgiveness only comes when you are the one that actually made that thing happen, maybe from a place of ignorance or whatsoever. Do you understand? There's also called releasing trauma bonds and soul ties, detaching from survival identities, having closures even without answers yet, and understanding boundaries as a release mechanism. There's also, module 6, and that's the sixth step, which is repair, healing the relational you. And it's okay to become the safe person that you've always known, right? Yeah, we look into attachment styles that someone was asking and how trauma shapes your relationship. Then we do inner child reparenting, building safe and reciprocal relationships, communicating your needs without fear, saying no without guilt. And then we go into renew. Here, we're helping you reclaim your joy, your identity, your voice, beyond trauma in itself, helping you to restore your rhythms. Everybody has a rhythm and routines that actually works for them based on who you are and your personality type and your conditioning, but most time we are trying to copy other persons. We're trying to act like the way other people act, but that's not how it's supposed to be. When you start to restore your routines and your redeems, you stop having contentions of your soul in itself. And then we go into rebuild. And this is where we start helping you to become whole and move forward. This, having vision after healing and all that and everything, you start helping you to understand this all together, and then rebuild. How did you write all of that before I even said the last one? So these are the 8 steps that we take you through, right? But all of this requires so much more beyond what it is that I've said, right? And this is going to be a journey over 8 weeks. We take them every day, and every single week and almost every day you are engaging in an exercise every single day that takes you through the healing journey. If anybody tells you that you're going to heal from one day, it's a lie and it's impossible. I told you I've been going through my healing from trauma for since 2019. That was when I actively started my healing journey from trauma. Right, and there's still a lot of healing journey I need to go through. So if from 2019 to 2025 I've been going through my healing journey, who are you to come and be going through healing in one day? It's not possible. The first step you can do is to definitely go through your self-awareness journey. And so I'd like to invite you to join us for the Trauma to Thriving program that is going to take place for 8 weeks. And it's going to be a powerful time together where we go deep dive to help you understand all of these things I've shared beyond just the way I've said it. We're going to help you to understand it deeply, and it is these exercises you're going to take throughout that journey that would even help you with the healing journey. It's one thing to learn and to see yourself understanding these concepts and all of that, bringing science and bringing, psychology, science plus psychology, and having faith when necessary. When you bring all of these things together, you go through the journey. There are some things that are happening to you that requires healing. It's not village people. When you are able to differentiate between village people and yourself, your self-sabotage, you're self-sabotaging yourself. You must understand the difference between that. Some of you are praying for something that your mind does not have the capacity to receive. And it's because over time you have been shut down. A lot of married women who are in difficult marriages, or even married men in difficult marriages, you are not living your best life. You are living a less than life. The person that God has designed you to be, you have not stepped into it yet. You are still engaged in limiting yourself because somebody has spoken over you over and over and over that you can never amount to anything, you can never be anything, and that's what has been happening to you, right? So I'm just going to go through the questions and all of that. So moving on from here, if you would like to be a part of this program with us, it's okay. Have I shown you Moto 8? Yes, I've shown you already. So over time, throughout this program, we're going to be having it for 8 weeks. And this is how you can be a part of us. And we're going to take you through the journey of healing in totality in itself, right? We're going to have 8 core modules, and we're going to have a private community, not WhatsApp. We're not using WhatsApp for this. It's going to be a more private community where you have a track of the things that you're saying so that you're not distracted by what people are saying and talking about in a group setting. You're able to track the different conversations we're having part time concerning the different weeks modules. So based on the exercises that we're giving to you, you can always come back to a particular module and the conversations on that, apart from the course itself, to do your exercise or submit some things that you need to do, right? And then we have core resources. We're going to have emotions tracker, thought trackers, templates, and so many things that you're going to have in a Google Drive that's going to be a detailed one. You can easily write them down. We're going to have all sort of stuff that you can keep using even after the program. You can print them out and keep using them as often as you want. You can even teach your children. You can take them through the exercises with them, just so that you're able to be a part of it. So for you to be a part of this program, it's going to cost 120K for early bird offer to be a part of this. Now, if you want to have 2 hour 1 hour session twice, because it will make sense if you're going through the program and you're also being able to have sessions with me to deal with some things, maybe on a personal level, just to bring it home for you. So you get the whole program, the whole courses, but then you also have 2 different sessions with me. And for you to have a session with me for 1 hour is 60K. So when you combine that, so if you're joining us in the next 24 hours, you get an opportunity to, pay this discounted offer for this one also. But if you're not ready to join us now, you can take your time. And we also have an opportunity for you to pay twice. If you want to pay twice, you can pay either once or you can pay twice, using the early bird offer that will run for the next, say, 3 weeks before we have the main program itself. So whichever way you want to join us, this is how you can join us. So at this point, I'm going to say to you that you can actually begin your journey by also going through the stuff that I shared. I'm going to just open it again. So I'm just going to open the document itself, and let's see if we can even answer one of the questions. So if you have questions to ask, please let us know. Also, I'd like to hear from you. What were you able to learn differently that you feel like, you've not paid attention to this very thing before, right? Yeah, you may not have gotten all the full process on how to go through your healing journey, but you probably have gotten an understanding of certain things that you have been noticing before, but you never really took your time to pay attention to, right? And now you can say to yourself, this falls under this falls under this. And that's the first step of healing, and everybody should go through. So I want you to tell me in the comment section, what was that thing that you actually learned, and you're going to take and really say to yourself, I really want to really understand this more and process this more. So tell us what you have learned tonight. Tell us what you have learned tonight. And I can take 1 or 2 questions because I have a session tonight. So I'm just going to go through that. If you also want to be a part of this program, you can just screenshot this particular screen so that you can actually just use the information to be a part of us. So someone says, I have a personal question. I have a partner and we both know we have expressed trauma in different ways, and the triggers has gone to a point of crashing the relationship. I believe in working together to make it work, and I believe he wants to get a better partner because he really won't want to stress on trying to make things work with me because we both have stuff to work on, and he's not sure his mental health can afford to see me experience any weakness again. Why not? So before he goes on to meet a person, why not both of you go for therapy? Why not, why not engage in therapy first, right? One person can, or, you can, for instance, you can join this type of program or take a more personal therapy session. And that's why we have an option of those who want to take therapy session also. I don't know how much it is in rand, but what I know that you can do is that you can go on Google and just say, I don't know the offer you want to take. So let's assume it is 120K, or sorry, 100K. You can just go on Google and say, what is 100,000 naira in rand, right? And then the website is also going to go live tomorrow when we start sharing the flyer tomorrow. So you can even go to the website and you would see the 3 options of payment. You will see the 24 hours discount. We're going to allow the 24 hours discount to run till, today is Sunday, so it's going to run till Tuesday morning. So we're going to leave it all through tomorrow because you don't have access to the site yet. So you can do that over there. So maybe you can pay in different currency there. So maybe that could also help. Also, yeah. So I hope that helps. So yeah, back to iPhone. I don't know your name, but based on the question, I think that you both need to go for therapy first, because if it goes on to a relationship, it's also going to wreck the other person. So instead of wrecking people here and there, just work on your healing journey first. Funny enough, even when you work on your healing journey, you sometimes may even just tell yourself, this is not the kind of person I should have even been dating in the first place. Do you understand? I have a question. I just signed up for individual counseling last week, but I haven't signed up for any sessions yet. Can I switch it to this class instead? Yes, you can. So I don't know I don't know the number of sessions you paid for, right? I don't know the number of sessions you paid for, because you then, now that you want to convert it, you have to then say to yourself, how can you did for, okay, you're the one that did the 8 weeks one. Okay, yeah, I remember that. Oh, I see. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. That's fine. Okay. So that means you're going for okay, yeah, that's actually a perfect one. Because you still have the two sessions, and then you still have to be a part of the course, the community, the core resources. That's fantastic. Yeah, you can reach out to me. Maybe send me an Instagram DM or email. I don't know. If you have my Instagram, you can come on my Instagram. Yes. So you can go for the second option. The money you paid can go for that. That's fantastic. All right. Okay, so for those who want to pay in other currencies, you may need to pay on the website tomorrow, because of I don't know if you can do a direct Nigeria payment to this one, though we have the dollar card, dollar payment also, but then you can either use this one or you just pay on the platform itself. Okay, so can we have one more questions before you go? Please don't forget to do this workbook I gave to you. Yeah, that's a fantastic question. That's a fantastic question. The program starts from June 1st to July 30th. It's 8 weeks. I forgot to add that. Registration is from today till May 30th, and then we start the program from June 1st to July 30th, right? No, you can only get the recording on YouTube. It's right on YouTube, right? You can only get that, not the slides. I'm going to build up on the slides in itself. Please, I want you to use the workbook. Oh. Don't feel like, oh, because the class is over. If you want to start taking that workbook one by one, the questions one by one, I hope you know that we'll not leave here tonight. The questions will be very deep and very thin. Those questions are very deep, and I really want you to take your time to go through them and allow yourself to really heal, at least build self-awareness. You see, that sitting down to help yourself to remember the things that you have forgotten, to even help you understand why you are behaving a certain way. That's the beginning of your healing. Self-awareness is just the best way to start before you start bringing science and medical and all these little things I want to do. Before you start bringing everything and all, right? First start with that, right? Before you start going into cognitive behavioral therapy and all of that, start with that question that I've asked you, because that's how your healing is triggered. Do you understand? All right. So if you'd like to send me a message, please send me a message on Instagram, or you can send me an email, anyone, right? I'll need to end this class now, as we do not have another question. I have a session that I had to beg them to allow us to do it this evening, because I had to focus on preparing for this program. So I have to do that session now before I go and sleep. You see that I have a lot of work to do. All right. So, but I was asking us to tell us what you learned. You're not going to tell us. You're going to have to tell me what you learned. So, sincerely speaking, at least let us know, what have you learned? What have you learned? I have 3 minutes more before I go. Tell me what you learned. Even if it's one thing, you can send an email to tell us what you learned, or you can go on and also send a personal message or share it in a group. Tell us what you learned. Do you understand? No, you can just type, please. Thank you, Sarah. Yes, you can type, though I'm going to go off very soon. You learn to be patient with your healing journey. That's fantastic. I feel less guilty. I love that. I love that, because when you start feeling less guilty and stop blaming yourself for everything that, I mean, you did not even you're not the one that is responsible for, you are able to actually allow yourself to start your healing journey. Self-compassion is one of the first things that everybody have to, do for themselves. So you have to stop allowing yourself to always stay in a place of shame, 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 and all of that, right? Yes, yes. Parents must have picked one or two things also in terms of how to relate with their kids, right? Okay, thank you so much for your time and have a fantastic day, everyone. Take care. Bye. You can always watch the replay again on Zoom.